Okay, I'm going to show you how to fix a drop stitch in the section of clue 7 of the purport pattern. So from what I can tell, you've got these two strands here, which you actually want to just take off of both of those needles, so they're just kind of hanging out here behind. And I would recommend just go ahead and kind of straighten them out so that they're clearly coming across flat and not twisted up at all. And then where your caught stitches are on your cable needle, like I said, there's a fourth loop that I'm not sure where it's coming from, but basically it's in a position as though those 3 stitches have just been knit. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you drop down, but I'm going to have you drop down until you can get just 1 stitch on your needle. And so you may be able to just drop down to the next row. I'm going to show you how to do it, but you may have to drop down 2 more rows after that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and not just drop down to the next row. I'm going to drop down 3 rows from where it is right here. And then I'm going to put timestamps in the video description. So basically you're going to, once you get 1 stitch on the needle in the center, I'm going to have you count your strands and then just skip to the part of the video that has that many strands behind the drop stitch, where you just have 1 stitch on your needle. So I'm gonna drop down 1 more row here just to show you what I mean. So when I pull that out, I have this stitch here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come underneath and grab that next strand. So coming from over here, if you can see that strand, and I'm just going to kind of give this a tug, 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 tug. So it comes out and it's loose all the way over to this section. All right, so if you have 1 stitch here, this is where you can start. I'm going to go down 2 more rows. So I'm just going to tug the strand. And then I should get 3 stitches. All right, and then I'm going to tug 1 more time. Come to that next stitch. All right. All right, so I just want this 1 stitch on my needle. So if you have at this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strands, if you have 5 strands behind, you can start here. If you have only 3 strands behind, then jump ahead to the part where you just have 3 strands. Okay, so basically what we're going to do to get started, I would recommend getting this left needle out of the way. So I'm going to just put a little cap on it so that nothing can come off of it, and then just kind of pull it out of the way. Okay. So you do want to make sure that your strands that are behind are, that you're getting them, picking them up in the right order. So you can either come over here to the right or you can go over to the left, but you basically want to kind of straighten them out, and you want to make sure that you're always working with the bottommost strand. Okay. So before you do that, this is the end of what's on the needle here is basically what is the result of working the slip knit 2 past this, or slip knit 2 together and then pass the slip stitch over. That's that stitch. And so we actually need a yarn over on either side. So I want to come to the strand below that kind of seems like it's already attached, and it is. It's actually attached to this stitch right here. So if I give this stitch a tug, I should be able to tighten. You can see right here, tighten that. If I give it a tug in the other direction, it's tightening or loosening right over here. Okay, so basically I want to pick up a yarn over on either side of this stitch. So I'm just going to come over here. So you always want your yarn over to come from the front. So from the front over the needle, or from the right, it should be coming from the front on the right side. So you don't want it coming over the needle this way, where the yarn is coming over the front from the left. You want it coming over the front from the right. All right, so I'm going to pick up one on that side, and I'm going to come over here and pick up a yarn over on this side. Okay, so this would be what you would have if you had just worked a pattern row. So that means we need to come behind here, find your bottommost strand, and we're going to knit these 3 stitches with this strand. So I'm going to be using this needle and my right needle to do that. And again, I want to make sure I get that bottommost strand. I'm just going to pull this loop out. All right, so however you knit. I actually prefer to do that. I'm an English style knitter. I usually hold my yarn in my right hand, but when I'm picking up stitches this way, I find it easier to actually kind of work continental. That is, I'm just kind of tensioning this loop over my index finger, and I'm going to go into the, go as if to knit into that stitch, and I'm just going to scoop the strand that's going over my finger under that each time. So into the stitch and scoop, into the stitch and scoop. Now, the problem with picking up stitches this way is that you're going to end up with excess yarn to the left of those 3 stitches that you just made. All right. So before I continue on, you can see it's pretty tight over here, and then there's a lot of, it's very loose over here. So before I continue, I'm actually going to pull as much excess out of this stitch on the left as I can, and then I'm going to kind of cinch it behind. So I'm kind of holding that excess up against the back of this needle, and then I'm going to grab this middle stitch and I'm going to pull that excess into that middle stitch, and then I'm going to cinch it again back here, and then I'm going to pull that excess over to the right stitch. All right, so your excess is always going to want to shift to the left because of the way that we're picking these stitches up. So I'm going to just leave all this excess over here, because as I slide my stitches back over and I'm rearranging them, it's just going to kind of even out. Okay. So now we have as if to knit, or our 3 stitches here in the middle are as though we've just knit them. Okay. So you can already see, even though I've pulled out that slack over, that this left side is still a little bit bigger. So I'm going to actually do that again. All right. Okay. We're going to continue from here, and we're going to work a pattern row. So our pattern row is, we have this yarn over. So I am going to start with the yarn over. I'm just going to bring the yarn over my right needle here before I begin to work my pattern stitch, which is that slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. And so I'm going to kind of do this the same way that I worked the other stitches with, which is with this loop of the strand of yarn. So you want to make sure that you got that bottommost strand again. Okay, so go ahead and pull those strands out. Right, make sure you got that bottommost strand, and just kind of come with your right needle underneath it, and then slip this first stitch knitwise, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So I'm going to come into those 2, and I'm just going to scoop that through. All right, and then we're going to grab this stitch that we slipped and lift it over, and then we still need a yarn over on the other side. So I'm going to bring my needle tip behind and scoop underneath that again. Okay. Now, same problem here. We're going to have excess yarn over to the left. So I'm going to switch all 3 of these. I'm going to slide them back over to my middle needle, my little DPN, and then I'm going to grab this first strand and I'm going to tug it, tug all that excess, and then tug that into my center stitch. All right. And then tug as much of that as I can into my right stitch. And then when I slide these back, they are going to kind of even out. Okay. You just want to make sure that you have more excess over here to the right than you have on the left. All right. So these 3 stitches now, if you have 3 strands and you just have the 1 stitch in the center, basically you're going to need to pick up a yarn over from either side of this. And so you want to find the strand that's going to your center stitch. All right, and you want to get a yarn over on that side, and then you want to find that same strand. All right, so just kind of give it a tug, make sure it's going to that, and get a yarn over on the right. All right, and then you want to kind of give all of this a tug, starting from the left stitch. Tug the excess of the yarn over to the right. Okay, because of the way that we're picking up these stitches, it's going to want to continually have more excess yarn on the left side, and so you don't end up with a really wide left side and a really narrow right side. We want to continue to get as much excess over to the right as possible. Okay, so from here, with we've got the yarn over, our pattern stitch, the yarn over, and we're just going to knit this next row. So you're going to come over here, find your bottommost strand. All right, and we're going to just knit all 3 of these stitches with that bottommost strand. So I'm going to loop that over my index finger and kind of hold the tension back behind, and then go into the first stitch as if to knit and just scoop, second stitch, scoop, third stitch, scoop. All right, and then I'm going to transfer those 3 stitches that I just made back over to my left needle here, and then I'm going to, again, I'm going to try to pull as much of that excess over to the right as possible. So I'm going to pull on that left stitch and hold that. I'm going to grab that center stitch and I'm going to pull the excess into that, and then pull that right stitch, get all that excess into my right stitch. All right. So from here, you should have the 2 strands remaining that you had when we started. 3 stitches on your spare needle, whatever you're using to work these stitches with. And we need to work a pattern row. So you want to find, for these 2 strands, you want the bottommost strand. All right, so kind of take that top strand and get it out of the way. So I'm going to loop that over my index finger on my left hand, scoop underneath it with my right needle. That's my yarn over, okay? And then I'm going to slip this first stitch knitwise. And then to do the knit 2 together, I'm just going to go into both of those knitwise and then just scoop through the yarn that's going around my index finger. And then we need to do pass the slip stitch over. So you're going to come with your left needle under that stitch and just lift it off. All right, and then if you still have that yarn around your index finger, you're just going to scoop under it to get that other yarn over on there. Otherwise, you just make sure you're finding that that strand. All right, so get that yarn over on there, and then put all 3 of these stitches back on your left needle. And again, tug the excess. So tug it from the left and hold it, tug it from the center and hold it, and then tug it all the way over here to the right. All right. And then we're going to take this last strand and just knit all 3 of these stitches. So into the stitch, and so again, I just loop this strand over my index finger. There's a way to do this English style. It's just because you're having to tug the yarn all the way over here, it increases the slack on the left side. Okay, so into the stitch and just scoop, into the stitch and scoop, into the stitch and scoop, and then put those 3 stitches back on the left needle, and again tug that excess over to the right side. All right, and from there you should be able to put your stitches on your needle, and you should be good to go. All right, so everything should be picked up correctly, and you can see that even with all that tugging, it is slightly wider over here on the left side of this column than it is on the right side of this column. But just give all of the stitches in the middle a little tug. It should help even it out a little bit. And once you block it, you'll never be able to tell that you did it. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions, or if there's anything I showed you that you didn't catch or that was unclear, or if there's anything else you need help with. But that should get your project back to where you were and be able to keep going without having to unknit, what is it, like 1100 stitches. So, all right,